Everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Communicating the Cooperative Difference Through Video Storytelling. We're super excited to have you guys here for this conversation this afternoon. Thank you for taking the time to hang out with us for a little bit. I'm trying to admit folks and also do an intro, so sorry if I'm a little bit distracted. My name is Liz. I'm the Director of Communication at NCBA. So as you can imagine, storytelling is a topic that's very near and dear to me. But storytelling is really for everyone. And our hope this afternoon is that this webinar sort of demystifies using video as a tool to tell your co-op story. Telling our stories is a critical piece of awareness and engagement building, as well as advocacy, as we'll talk about a little bit later on. And as we celebrate the year of cooperatives this year, storytelling as a priority comes into even sharper focus. So let's get started. We have an hour together this afternoon. We've set aside a bit of time to have some Q&A with our audience at the end of today's conversation. So as we talk today, definitely add your questions to the chat. We'll try to get to as many of them as possible. And on a related note, we do have this set up as a Zoom meeting today. So folks, you have the opportunity to turn your camera on and off, audio on and off. My colleague Kira and I will be muting anyone who might be like disruptive in the background. But we do want to have a conversation here this afternoon since this is a webinar about storytelling. So we want to hear from you. And then a final quick reminder from me. This webinar is being recorded, so you will have an opportunity to share it with your networks and watch it later on. So to kick things off, it's my pleasure to introduce our moderator for today's webinar, Virginia Brown. Virginia is the Director of Cooperative Engagement and Member Outreach at NCBA, and she'll be guiding our conversation this afternoon. So Virginia, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Liz. Thanks, everyone, for being here today to talk about this really exciting and important topic, especially as we are all celebrating the year of cooperatives this year. And video can be an incredibly effective tool for telling our stories of impact and educating people, advocacy, all of what Liz has mentioned, and that we're going to dive into today. I will introduce very briefly our three amazing speakers. We have Mandy McKinnon from National Co-op Grocers. She's a senior advocacy manager there. We've also got Hasina Ramanasua, all the way from Madagascar. So it's evening his time. He's a production director with digital development communications, which is a huge global media company, award-winning media company. We've worked with him for many years, actually, on telling our stories in Madagascar that we'll get into in a little bit. And then we also have Sonia Erica, who is a cooperative peer advisor at the U.S. Federation of Worker Cooperatives. She's part of the Cooperative Leaders and Scholars cohort this year that NCBA CLUSA and Cooperative Development Foundation host every year in conjunction with our Impact Conference, and amongst many other things. But so we've got the three of them here, and we'll tap into their insights, their expertise, and hopefully you all will leave this session with some tools, ideas for how to tell your co-op stories through video. So I'm gonna start first with Hasina as our resident producer guru. And Hasina, you've been in the video production business for over 20 years. You've filmed in over 30 countries. And with NCBA CLUSA, we've worked together in Madagascar, Kenya, Tanzania, and you've helped us produce several amazing videos that focus on the power of cooperatives. So my question for you is, as you navigate telling a cooperative story through video, how do you approach the narrative? Like, what advice can you share on identifying the most powerful or compelling elements of a co-op story that are going to resonate with the audience, and then pulling that into video?
So hi everyone. Thanks Virginia for giving me the floor and for inviting me to this event. It's great to see a lot of people care about the storytelling and for the communities. So I think one thing that I would like to note before I start to speak is uh, you don't need expensive equipment to or dramatic stories to to make up a good video. You just need a clear message and a human heart behind it, basically. So to tell a story, um, you always need to identify the challenge or a question, because that would be the reason for people to watch. They would need to identify a problem or a question or a struggle that we need to answer or to resolve. So it can be something small or something big, but it just needs to feel real. So for example, it could be uh, about a new member trying to find uh, his or her voice in the group. It can be, I don't know, a community uh, facing some financial issues and finding a way through the co-op to solve the problem. But the challenge makes people curious. They want to know what happened. How will the um, the, the organization or the character solve the issue? So yeah, it's important to start with a clear challenge. So once you have identified your challenge, um, you now need to decide on the way you're going to tell the story. And there's generally like two ways to tell a story. Either the purpose would be to either inform or inspire. Um, this is most of the time we want to inform and inspire at the same time. It's a little bit challenging. Sometimes it works, but not always. But you at least need to intentionally know what you want to do towards informing or inspiring. So when I say inform, it means that the story is about explaining something. So it's really about um, a structured narration that guides the audience logically. So, for example, most of the time when you're making a video that explains something, you you would most of the time use multiple voices, uh, maybe at different levels, like the leader of the co-op, and then a long-time member, a new member. People bring different angles to the same topic, uh, and then on the other side, if you want to inspire more, you can be very creative, but uh, uh, the easiest approach would be to choose a central character, um, and they would tell their story themselves, or people around them would praise them and they'll uh, give testimonials about him or her. That can be very moving. Uh, so in this direction, you can go deeper into the story. Like maybe it's a story of a single mom who found economic freedom through co-ops, or I don't know. Somebody who just found their purpose in the co-op or something. Real stories that would speak to people. So yeah, I would invite you to think about those two lanes. Then a challenge. You just need to identify a challenge, and then decide on whether you're more into informing or inspiring, or something in between.
No, Hasina, that's great. And I think that's, the challenge, right? That's why cooperatives form, right? It's people coming together to solve a challenge that they're collectively facing so much of the time. So that's really helpful. And right, all the different perspectives in a cooperative, a leader, a longtime member, a newer member, like all those different perspectives that are still having that common goal. I think that's yeah, really helpful. So then, Mandy, I'm going to turn to you, and I know you've also worked with NCG for a long time and been a supporter of, telling stories, telling impact through videos, and you've worked with a lot of the food co-op members over the years on doing that. And I know in your roles, you've worn a communications hat, you've worn now an advocacy hat, and so from both of those perspectives, then for communications and advocacy purposes, why do you think that video storytelling is something that cooperatives should consider and invest in?
Yeah, thanks. I'm also happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I think there are a few things that I would point to as reasons that co-ops should invest in video storytelling. One is that co-ops are what I like to call people-powered organizations. We're formed from the same cloth as community organizing, grassroots efforts. Because of this, we have rich stories, and I mean, really rich. Often it's a group of people overcoming some sort of odds or overcoming some sort of oppressive situation. So it is just what everyone wants to have a story like that to tell. It's so compelling. At NCG, I encourage our member food co-ops to tell their origin stories, to remind their community that their co-op was a hard-won resource once upon a time, and it was started because food is a basic need that everybody shares, and community ownership over that food system is one way to build resilience. Co-ops are also, as we know, an alternative economic model, so it's something that young people are interested in. Well, let's say it's a movement as well as a business model, right? So it's something that it's a great time right now to be able to tell that story and build awareness of, hey, we're trying something different with this business model here, and maybe it's something you should look into if you happen to be unsatisfied with the services that you're getting in your community, whether it's banking or food or otherwise. A second reason I would say is video is one of the most effective vehicles, or maybe the most effective vehicle for conveying emotion and inspiring emotion. There's nothing quite like that immersive audiovisual experience. And when things get boring, and like with co-ops, face it, some of the things that we try to communicate about the co-op difference, it's a bit dry. There's democratic decision making, board elections, annual meetings. Some of that can be a little bit dry on the dry side. So I think that it's hard to make those things sexy, but that video can sometimes help, or at least bring a sense of humor potentially into some of those areas. The third thing, and I think Hasina touched on it, is that there's a lot of bang for the buck to be had with video. These days, it's cheap if you're willing to make it authentic, and like people are used to seeing it on social media, and they're consuming a lot of video content. So it's very familiar, and it's a format that if you haven't explored it yet, it doesn't have to be elaborate. You can have a very short story to tell, but it is open to a lot of us now with everyone has a cell phone that can have that, or many people have cell phones and have that ability to record video. So it is sort of low-hanging fruit, I'd say, with communications these days.
Yeah, Mandy, that's great. That's great. And I love that segue into, and Hasina, you talked about it too. You wanted to start off by saying you don't need fancy equipment to tell a great story, right? And you are a fancy producer telling us we don't need fancy equipment, right? And so Sonia, that's where your expertise comes in. As you know, videos are so accessible to everyone now, and through social media, um, you know, it doesn't take a lot of time and money to produce something that can be really effective. So my question for you then is, because on social media, right, the flip side of that is that there's just so much content in your face. It's just an endless scroll going in one ear and out the other. How can cooperatives tell our story so that when someone is going through that scroll, they want to stop and pay attention to the co-op story?
Yeah, I love this question. We definitely have so much content now, and it can definitely feel overwhelming. And so, as the person that's creating the video, I think it's important for you to recognize yourself as a producer instead of as a consumer, and really think about how much you're consuming versus producing. And then once you get ready to really put your content out there, which sometimes can feel overwhelming, and it can be like, oh my gosh, it has to be perfect. So one of the really, this is a really great tip that I've learned from Alex Wolf, which is values-based creation. And I really appreciate it because as cooperatives, we're very big on mission, vision, values. And so values-based creation is just looking at your values. You may have 5 values. Let's say that one of your values is adventure. And then you take that value and you think about, how can I make a story that shows this value? And through that, you're no longer thinking like, what am I going to make? Is this going to be good enough? You're just thinking about your values and seeing and creating stories based off of your values. And then that way you can really take off the pressure of like, oh my gosh, you know, I have to make this perfect video, and just make something that really resonates with who you are as an organization. And, you know, that's it. So that's a really great tip. And I completely resonate with everyone here saying that you don't need fancy equipment. Because to be honest, I'm part of a nomadic band, and we made all of our music videos with a phone wherever we travel. So we went to Mexico, Peru, Brazil, and all of the footage that we gathered was taken on a phone. And then from there, you know, just a little bit of editing skills, which now you can use CapCut, or even Instagram and TikTok have their own editing tools, which can be very simple and useful. And that's it.
Awesome. Thanks, Sonia. Yeah, these are all really, really great tips and insights as we think about making videos that share our co-op's impact. So what we want to do now is, and yes, people keep putting your questions in the chat because we are going to have Q&A at the end. But since we're talking about videos, we want to actually showcase some videos now, and we have a few different kinds of videos. The first one we're going to share with you is just a short 2.5-minute video that Hasina and his team in Madagascar produced for one of the development projects we implemented in Madagascar several years ago. So yes, this is a more professionally produced film, but we're going to look at other examples as well. But so I think we have that video teed up, and we'll watch that and then get back to some questions. Yeah, folks are working on the audio real quick.
Hey guys, do you want me to try to play it? Virginia, can you hear me?
Yes, I think we're gonna have it up in a second.
Okay, I can try to play it from here too. And for folks who are online with us today, bear with us that the internet at NCBA went out unexpectedly this afternoon. So we're juggling that. Let me see if I can play this instead. I'm gonna start sharing.
All right, Liz, we are gonna try it from yours.
Okay. Okay. Can you see that?
Yep,
Okay. Amazing.
yep.
Fa ela ihany zany namokotra curcuma fa mbola kelikely le traikefa nananana. Nanano sarotra le famokarana. Timy le association le mbola tsy nahazo formation loatra. Le lalam-barotra zany tamin'iny ohatrany mbola tsisy loatra.
Kanely zany zany mbola tsy dia mpaha-raha loatra. Taloha zany mamboly dia kelikely fotsiny dia agny ndraiky ndraiky tsy voavagna dia tsy firy ny vokatra azo aminanjy. Tonga taminay taty mampionana avy amin'ny fararano nanentana anay andehanao coopérative. Nanao formation zay takao dia nitaritary le mombamomba ny hoe le famokarana sy ny famarotana sy le olona hividy.
Tetikasa fararano zany nagnome torohevitra anay dia nagnatona zany zay agnatona le coopérative satria miova le tadidikavina raha igny.
Ny tegna zava-dehibe ho anay dia mahita ny coopérative manana le toe-tsaigna mitambatra dia hoe mijery tsena aloha zay vao tokony amokatra.
Il y avait un bassin de paysans que Clousa avait et nous ont fourni une liste en fait de paysans. Donc les efforts qui ont été faits par Jacaranda sont essentiellement techniques où Jacaranda a mis à disposition des semences pour les paysans. Et puis après, il y a eu tout un accompagnement mis en place par Jacaranda avec 2 agents qui sont en permanence sur le terrain pour former les paysans.
Efa nisan'le projet fararano niaraka tamin'ny zareo Clousa dia moramora kokoa zany ny nahitana an'le mpamokatra sy moramora koa ny hifehezana an'le olona mba hanaraka an'le fenitra biolojika. Dia mokoa zareo manampy anay amin'le fanaraha-maso an'ireo mpamokatra amin'le fanarahana an'le fenitra zany.
Tatafara zany zay tena nivelatra bebe koa ny fambolenanay ary le lalam-barotra zany matramizao tena tsy manahirana anay intsony. Ny tanjona tratrarinay dia mba ho lasa coopérative madiana zay dia mety hampirosy anay lavidavitra mihitsy ny olo-curcuma ty.
Rehefa mitombo ny fidiram-bolany dia hanatsara ny sakafo ao amin'ny ankonana izy zay ny tanjona tetikasa fararano.
Awesome, thanks. And just a side note on that is this cinnamon turmeric cooperative, they are still selling to that French company. So it's really great that they are still earning income and have that buyer relationship, which is awesome, that they wouldn't have if they were not a cooperative. And so Hasina, I'm going to take you back then because this, I think, was filmed in 2017, so it's some years ago. But I want to ask now that, you know, we've seen this video as an example, I'd like to ask you a very similar question then, is that what were the elements of this cooperative development story that stood out for you as you learned about it as the producer? And so then how did you highlight them in this video?
Mhm. Yeah, so it's the impact of co-op on those small farmers are very obvious. They are so proud of the benefits that they're getting from being a cooperative. So that's we wanted to bring a little bit of that human story, but at the same time explain the whole process, like the approach, how it was all put in place. So if we go back to the elements I mentioned earlier, like start with a challenge. So here it's very simple. The question challenge is how can these small farmers from this remote area of Madagascar access larger markets and be rewarded fairly for their labor? So that's the question. That's the driving question. And then in terms of the purpose, so it's more information, but as there is this human touch to the story, we wanted to start with a character, one of the farmers, Jean-Pierre, and then so he set up the challenge, and then the whole story is like any story, it's 3 parts: intro, body, conclusion. So for instance, challenge is introduced in the intro, then the solution, implementing the solution, which is the co-op and all the programs that the NCPA and the partners have put in place. And then conclusion is just results, impact. So yeah, so.
Right. Yeah, thanks, Hasina. I think that's so important. It's something we learn when we're young, even how to tell a story or write an essay. You have an intro, you've got your body, you got your conclusion, and that applies to videos as well. Thank you for that. And so then now we're going to turn to a video example that NCG produced, and this is a different example in that it's animation, but it's got a lot of great content in it and also very short. So we're going to watch this one quickly.
What's to love about food co-ops? Where do I start? Co-ops have a cool way of doing things differently. Co-ops are people working together for better food, stronger communities, and a healthier world. And the food? Amazing. All it takes is one visit to a co-op to know this is where you find great tasting, nutritious food, along with earth-friendly household and personal care products. But did you know? Co-ops are owned by consumers like me, not investors. And I'm proud to be one of the 1.3 million members nationwide. Because at co-ops, I can find meat that is sustainably raised and a ton of delicious organic produce. Honeycrisp apples. Co-ops are super recyclers of plastics, cardboard, and food waste. Great for Mother Nature. The average co-op purchases from 51 local farms and 106 other local producers. I love my local farmers. How about a little comparison shopping? Compared to other grocers, co-ops work with more local farmers and producers, carry 3 times more locally sourced products, donate more than 3 times as much annual income to charity, and sell far more organics, whether it's produce or other products. Co-ops spend more on local wages and benefits than conventional grocers, which means they can pay employees nearly $1 more an hour. And more of their employees are eligible for health insurance. That's what I'm talking about. Co-ops spend 38% of their revenue locally, while conventional grocers only spend 24%. And for every $1,000 spent at a food co-op, more than $1,600 is generated in the local economy. That's 1.5 times more money in your local economy than if you spent the same amount at a conventional grocer. So why do I shop at the co-op? Because fresh, delicious food is just the beginning.
Yeah. So that
Awesome.
that video it's so we NCG put that together for the last International Year of Cooperatives in 2012. So that's a little bit out of date, the statistics and things. We still collect data, but the statistics in that video maybe slightly, especially I was like maybe noticing the wage information a little bit out of date, but so I wanted to share that video though because it's wildly popular. It has been a big hit with our co-ops over the years, and it is. So we did hire an illustrator to put that together. We also worked with ICA Group to get data collected from the conventional grocery industry. And we did a member survey and collected data from our stores on their sustainability impact so that we could communicate the difference. That was the project. And the reason it ended up as a video is because when we got the report back, putting, like our data and the conventional data together, it was like 30 some pages. And it was one of those situations where like, there is so much good content in here. But how are we going to get anybody to read this? Because it is 30 pages and a lot of it is kind of dense, like you're trying to talk about economic multiplier and some of those things that are you have to maybe have some background to know like what we're really talking about. So putting together the video, using the animation actually turned out to be, like a cheaper, and maybe we can do like some fun things there in terms of bringing in the words and the picture, or the words and numbers, while the narration is going. So you have like a couple different focal points, and of course a fun song. So yeah, we felt like it was a really good alternative to your standard impact report, and that it's short and engaging and kind of cute, and it moves really fast. But I do feel like overall you do get the point that like whether you know this, you can say the specifics. It's like you can see there's a very clear difference between what food co-ops are doing and then like what you might find at a conventional store. And as far as an advocacy resource, so like using it in my advocacy work, it got a lot of lift from co-ops, but it was also convenient to share with external organizations. So like we work with a lot of natural product brands in the natural foods industry, and they also want to know like, well, what's our impact? What are we as bringing like as a virtual chain of cooperatives? Like, what's our kind of position in the market? And so this is a really fun and convenient way to communicate that with other organizations. And we also ran it at conferences where we were either hosting or we were a sponsor. So somewhere, just to kind of spread the word about what we are and what makes co-ops different. We also do work in DC with lawmakers, and if we were to make an update on that video today, I would absolutely share it with some of my contacts in DC too, because, I know if you ever, work with legislation or legislators, they are reading so much material, and I feel like any alternative format for communicating information is so welcome. So just lots and lots of applications, even more than you might think, on the surface of it's not just social media.
Yep.
Mhm.
Mandy, that's awesome. That's great how you got so much mileage out of this video and sharing it here, and we're learning from it here even now, all these years later too. This is great. So yeah, now we've seen, an animation and an example professionally produced with following real people. And now we're going to turn to some social media content, also real people right here, actually. So we're going to go ahead and show, I think, the I think we can go ahead and show both of the videos for time's sake, and then Sonia will get to you with a couple questions.
Okay, I'm gonna share this time. I'm checking the audio.
Hey y'all. Hey babes. So our co-op trip to North Carolina is officially over. And we are so honored. We got to meet so many dope people from across the country and are so inspired. So many amazing cooperatives. Yes. Didn't even know they existed. An electrical cooperative, yeah, a housing co-op, market co-op, a grocery co-op. Enormous production that I was very excited to see that. Very inspired to do that. So here are some places we visited.
Three, two, one.
Hey y'all. Hey babes. So our co-op trip to North Carolina.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Sonia, so talk us through that first video, highlighting all different kinds of co-ops in a very short video, super engaging, exciting. Just curious, your thought process behind it, and then also curious what your audience response was.
Yes. And I will be linking all of the videos and even the music videos for Death of the Business. So I will be putting that on the chat. But that video, so I really appreciate what Mandy said about it's not all about social media. And at the same time, I want to say that social media is also a space where a lot of people are tuning in. It is like very much the initial space where people are tuning in to even get their news, because, with the current political climate, a lot of people are no longer watching the news. A lot of people are no longer, definitely not reading reports or reading, sometimes even sadly not reading books. But something that we have not tuned out yet is social media. And that's why I really see a really big power in it, because as audiences, as consumers of social media, it's actually really cool that we get to subscribe to the channels that we want to receive, the messages that we want to receive. And so that's why I think that it's even more powerful and important at this moment for us to create these messages about co-ops, to help people inform the masses about what is a co-op, how do co-ops work? Because, with so much content out there, people are waiting for this content. And so the first video that you all saw was actually from so I'm part of the Cooperative Leaders and Scholars Fellowship by NCBA CLUSA and the Co-op Foundation. And it was such an amazing trip. So much content, so much power, so many co-ops, so many people. And, shout out to Kirsty, shout out to Kathy. They're really leading this fellowship, and they made it so rich. And so I really recommend it for anybody who's looking for more knowledge and just to get to know more people. And we wanted to really condense this experience and help people have access to it. And so we made this video just taking throughout the whole trip. We kind of filmed with our phones, very much simply with our phones. And then at the end of the trip, Stephanie, who you see in the video with me, we kind of just stood outside one of the beautiful landmarks and we told people what happened. And then we kind of edited all to kind of create this image and visual for people to come into this trip with us, even though they didn't go into this trip with us. And so, yeah, that was very, very fun. And yeah, really appreciated the whole trip and being able to share it with people through this video.
That's great, Sonia. Yeah, no, that was such a fun video to watch. And so then tell us briefly about the other video, because that one also looks like it's like you were saying, social media is like can be a starting point to learn more about something else. And this one I think is a hook to a podcast. And so
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. So yeah, that one is a hook to a longer podcast. And it's this gallery that sadly no longer exists. But while it existed, it was a co-op, and it helped artists sell their items in the space, and then travelers who would come would then be able to pay the artists real fair prices. Because I don't know if you all have noticed, but a lot of the times there are curators and they will purchase our items from the artist, and then they will mark up the prices 10 times more, and then travelers will end up paying that price, but like very minimal of that goes to the artist. And so that was a really beautiful space with Catalina. And yeah, it was great to be able to show that space while it existed. And it may no longer exist, but it's a really good inspiration of what was and what can be. So I'll definitely be linking the episodes in our chat.
Awesome. Thanks, Sonia. No, this is great. This is great. And I see there are lots of questions in the chat, and we have time now for some Q&A. Maybe I'll just pull a couple questions from the chat real quick. And then also if anyone wants to come off mute and ask a question, we didn't do this as a webinar style today on purpose. We want folks to engage. But I really, since we've been talking about social media, I really like this question from Virginia Berman here, is that for Sonia, how did you evaluate, I guess the success of these videos, right? Is it the number of likes, the number of new podcast listeners? How did you just evaluate your take on those?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So, to be honest, as a creator, I don't like to focus too much on numbers, because sometimes the numbers won't be telling you exactly what you want to hear. And it may actually even discourage you from doing it again. And so how I like to think about it is that this is just a repetition. It's all a repetition. And then when it's out there, it's out there. And then I'm going to do it again. I'm just going to do it again. I don't want to know, like, I don't care what the numbers are. I just want to do it again. And I think that's the most important part, because then when you go back and look at it months later, a year later, and you can actually see the library of everything that you've done, I think that's the real progress, because then you can really take a look at it and send people the link to these libraries, like kind of like the NCBA CLUSA YouTube. I'm so excited to look at it, and I'm so happy that you guys have been recording these conversations, that you've been having, and it's a library now. And like, it's like, wow, that's great. And when you find your audience, like, right now, us, or in this particular case, me, this is the first time I hear that NCBA CLUSA has a YouTube channel. And look at that. If there's already like a set of videos. And sometimes you're not going to find your audience right away. Like whenever you make a video, you may not be connected to the audience that you're looking for right away, which is why it's more important for you to just keep on creating that repetition. And then when you organically meet somebody that is interested in what you're doing, that has an affinity to what you're doing, then you can share these links and then they can have a whole library. Because what if you would have looked at those numbers and then it would have stopped you from doing your next one? So my advice is numbers are important, but don't pay attention to the numbers all the time. Like, don't be afraid to just keep going and create, and then look back like a few months from now, a year from now, and see what that's done. But I will link my stuff and you guys will see our numbers. One of our videos did get 70K views. So that's really exciting. But again, it's like, I don't try to go by the numbers because sometimes the numbers can discourage me.
Sonia, I think that's such great advice. And right, we don't want to be caught in that social media trap of looking at how many likes and going back and checking again, and then you just get completely discouraged. Yeah, like you said, now a year later, all of these videos, all of this progress, all of this content that together tells an amazing story. Such good advice. I want to pick up one other question here from the chat, which I think is really great. Someone asked, our co-op is over 50 years old. We are a community institution and people are very familiar with us. Any advice on how we talk about old news in a fresh way? Like origin stories, maybe. I picked up on, Mandy, you had mentioned something about that earlier.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure what kind of co-op if you're running there, but you know, depending on so if you're talking like social media content or things like that, grabbing things from the current news cycle and anything that has like a parallel or, you know, I mean, I also am a big fan of revisiting our history, especially when we're like 50 years old, right? You know, like revisit your history with a sense of humor too, and like look back and do something like retro or, you know, like pull out what is resonating. I think like so many things that people were talking about in the 70s and you know, it's like these things are coming around again. And so depending on, you know, what your membership looks like and what kind of a co-op you are, you know, thinking about repackaging that story or just elements of your origin story in a fresh way, building off of themes that are active today. Oh, it's a food co-op I see in the chat. Awesome, even better. So yeah, I would say like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like we've got another wave of cooperation happening right now as food co-ops. There are food co-ops organizing kind of like a big influx of new startup co-ops. So I would say like the ideas are really fresh again, and never underestimate, you know, like retelling your story and kind of like almost saying, you know, like this is how people do it. This is how people have always done it. And this is how we're going to keep doing it. And people are still doing it today. And even lifting off of some of the food co-ops that are organizing today, like some of NCG members like Detroit People's Food Co-op or Sugar Beet and in Chicago, like there are some really good stories out there that you could, you know, kind of draw parallels. We are a 50-year-old co-op, and then we've got these that are like brand new today in, you know, people are still using this solution. You know, communities are still using this solution. It's still relevant.
Yep. Mandy, that's great. That's great. I'm wondering, yeah, if anyone is brave and wants to come off mute and ask a question.
I have a question. Would any of y'all be available to take a quick pass if we had an idea or a draft and wanted to get your advice on, you know, just thumbs up, thumbs down, or do this, do that?
Definitely. Yeah, no, for sure. No, that's part of this creative process, right? Is getting lots of feedback from folks too, right? As you're putting stories together. I do see also, and thanks for being brave enough to come off mute, Virginia, a fellow Virginia. I don't meet many other Virginias that often. There's a great question here too from Rebecca Kern. Any advice for organizations that aren't cooperatives yet, but building towards creating a national network of cooperatives? I'm always nervous to lean too heavily into calling it a co-op when we aren't legally set up that way, but we love everything about community ownership and think co-ops make the most sense for our project.
I can take that one. I really appreciate this because sometimes the law doesn't reflect our needs as organizations and as collectives, especially for a lot of us that work in the margins of legality. And so for me, what a cooperative really is in its basic foundation is shared decision-making, shared resources, and shared labor. So if you are doing those three with the collective that you are working with, I personally will say you are a co-op. Because what happens is also that sometimes you do have organizations that have like cooperative legal entities, and depending on the state, it might be a different legal entity. But sometimes cooperatives that have legal entities don't necessarily act like cooperatives. And so the most important part is for your core to really act with your values, your mission, vision, values. That's why I love mission, vision, values. I think they're the most important part. And then to also have shared decision-making, shared labor, and shared resources. So with that, just, put out your values-based content.
I love that. Maybe just one last thing then to our group here before we close. Any to Hasina, Sonia, Mandy, any of you, any just last tips you want to give to folks here who are considering on embarking on video storytelling for their co-op or co-op-like structure?
Yeah, I think there was the very first question in the chat, which is what's the good length? Yeah, I think that one is important. So generally, we tend to see shorter videos. Like 3 minutes is you really cannot go over 3 minutes most of the time. You can go as short as it depends if it's a social media, it can be super short. But the sweet spot, if it's a longer video, is generally 90 seconds to 2 minutes. But it's totally open. There's no fixed format.
Yeah, Hasina, thanks for that. And I'm glad you mentioned that because also maybe just to put a plug in now, we're doing this webinar as part of the Year of Cooperatives video storytelling campaign and doing a competition and hosting an awards ceremony at Impact this year. And just to mention that those three categories that we're accepting submissions in are the social media content, right? And I think that's probably around a minute most. I think you can maybe do slightly longer, but that's roughly right. Social media content. And then the short form videos are 2.5 minutes or shorter. And then really anything longer than 2.5 minutes, we count as long form. And that could even be like a full feature length documentary or something around 3 minutes, so those are the three different categories we've got going on. And Liz, thanks for putting that in the chat. But yeah, this has been so great. These are really amazing questions. Thank you for all the engagement. I am gonna hand it over to my colleague Kiera to do just a quick wrap up.
All right. Sorry. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Give me 1 second. All right. Great. Okay, can everybody hear me? Thumbs up. Okay, perfect. Awesome. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you all to our speakers. I think that this was such a great webinar to give everyone context on how to build videos, but then also knowing that you don't have to be a professional. You have the tools right in front of you. All you have to do is start. And I also liked, Sonia, what you said about not really thinking about numbers and just putting out content just for consistency, and the right audience will see it. So thank you everyone for joining. Again, of course, Virginia just touched on how this webinar is for our storytelling competition at our Impact Conference, which will happen October 7th through 9th. And we are doing this for the year of the Cooperatives. Liz just dropped in the chat information about our storytelling campaign. So that is available for you all. And I'll also drop, we have a web page that gives you additional information on how to create great videos with your smartphone. So you can take this information from the webinar, and then also the information on our website where you can learn more about how you can develop great videos to post on Instagram. And if you've been posting on Instagram or TikTok, you already are halfway there, or even 75% there. Just the idea of cleaning it up, adding pictures or adding videos. And the last thing I say is hopefully we would love to see everyone to come out to our Impact Conference, show those videos. We would love for you to submit your videos, and we really want to show your story so we can add it to our library and your library, and really develop a cooperative network where we're sharing our stories, because there's so many times where we don't know what everyone is doing. We would love to hear about what's going on in Colorado. We'd love to hear about what's going on in Maine. So making sure that we're all coming together in this space and time to really show what everyone is doing. So thank you again. And then Liz dropped in the chat, the deadline to submit the video is August 31st. We'll be following up with some additional information that you all can have. And if you all need anything, please feel free to reach out to us via email, info@ncba.coop, or if you have any of the NCBA staff's information, please feel free to reach out to us as well. And thank you. That's all that I have.
Thanks so much, everyone. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, everybody. I want to see
Thank
your video.
you. Yeah, send us your videos.